Thomas Goldcamp here with 24/7 Sports and Swamp247.com. Some Florida basketball news to get to. Since Florida's exit from the NCAA tournament in the round of 32, the Gators have had 4 players enter the NCAA transfer portal, a mass exodus from the program. Another guy, star point guard Trey Mann, has announced that he's going to enter the NBA draft and he will be signing an agent. So Mann will definitely be gone next year. And then 4 players have now opted to transfer from Florida. The latest, forward Omar Payne, apparently just days after he told Mike White that he planned to be back. So what is the news? Well, Florida's got 4 players that are departing, and the Gators are going to be facing a major rebuild as a result. The other players that join Omar Payne in the transfer portal, guard Noah Locke, guard Quez Glover, and big man Osayi Osifo. So, a couple of those losses, probably not major deals for Florida, but I think when you look at it in the big picture context, this is really a surprising amount of departures. Now, I had been told following the season from a source close to the program to expect heavy attrition. I have to say, I was surprised when I saw Noah Locke's name hit the transfer portal. He was not a guy that I was expecting to leave Florida. And I think when you see a guy that is a 3-year college player, a guy that probably doesn't have a ton of NBA potential when you look at Noah Locke, just because of his ability to not necessarily be able to, I guess you should say his lack of ability to really create for himself offensively. Certainly a very, very good shooter, a great college shooter, has really done a nice job for Florida the past 3 years. When you look at a guy like that suddenly decide to enter the transfer portal, to me that raises a lot of questions. And I think the questions that Florida fans have at this point is what in the world is going on? You have a guy like Noah Locke who's opting to transfer out rather than finish out his career at Florida. Is there a systemic issue in this program? Do players still believe that Mike White, the coach of the Florida Gators, is the right guy to have this job? Obviously, Florida fans have been very frustrated by how the NCAA tournament has unfolded the last couple times that Florida's been in it. Following that terrific Elite Eight run with Chris Chiozza, Florida has managed to get to the tournament, but really has stumbled and not necessarily looked like they were a team that could potentially make a deep run in March. And I think that's the root of the issue for Florida fans right now. They feel like there's a lack of development. They feel like there's a lack of consistency. And it's really hard to argue with that right now, especially when you look at now going into year 7 for Mike White. The Gators are going to be facing a significant rebuild yet again. I think, when you see Noah Locke's name enter the transfer portal, to me, that was the first one that really kind of raised my eyes. You can explain away some of the other ones. Omar Payne in 2 years for Florida has struggled to kind of consistently get minutes for the Gators. There's been times where him and Coach Mike White have not really seen eye to eye. Mike White several times has kind of lamented the work ethic, the focus from Omar Payne in practice. He talked about it after the big game that Payne had against Auburn last year, when they took down a top 10 Auburn team and Payne had 19 points and 11 rebounds. Payne could never follow that up. And I think you saw it again this year in the upset of number 6 Tennessee. Payne goes for 9 points, 9 rebounds, but then kind of disappears. And this is a guy that, again, you can make a case for him potentially being a guy that wants to transfer and get a fresh start elsewhere. I don't really see the case for a positive spin on Noah Locke transferring. And I think when you look at 5 guys now that are departing from the program, Colin Castleton's another guy who's entered his name into the NBA draft. Now, he's not signing with an agent, so he'll have the potential to come back. And at this point, I would expect him to return. But you're still talking about a major, major rebuild for Florida next year. And I think one other thing that I haven't touched on, the Payne news is particularly surprising because Florida's team reporter, their in-house beat reporter for the Florida basketball team, wrote a piece last Thursday that said in no uncertain terms Mike White had his interviews that Tuesday with players and kind of gotten an idea what to expect going forward. He said 5 players would be back, and those 5 players were Colin Castleton, Tyree Appleby, Anthony DeRuggi, Omar Payne, and excuse me, I got the last one wrong, but the last one is Jason Jatobo. And now you're at the point where of those 5 guys that told Mike White they plan to come back, excuse me, not Osifo, but Omar Payne is now in the transfer portal. And Colin Castleton, even though I expect him to come back, has put his name into consideration for the NBA draft. So to me, there's a lot. And again, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Again, I have a source that had told me to expect heavy attrition. So I don't know what these conversations are like. I don't know for sure how much Mike White knew of these transfer portals coming in. I don't know that he knew fully about them. I do think when you look at Omar Payne, that comes as a little bit of a surprise, just not even a week after the team reporter said he had told White he expected to be back. So you've got to start to wonder if there's more systemic issues within the Florida program. I think at this point, I have a ton of doubts about whether Mike White is the right guy. I've been a little bit probably slower to get there than a lot of fans. And I think at this point, I was behind on that. And I think a lot of the fans were kind of to that place where, they were upset with Mike White, kind of ready to move on before I was. And I think I'm pretty much getting there at this point because to me, forget the transfers, forget if there's anything nefarious going on behind the scenes, whether, that's players not trusting Mike White anymore or players being upset, with the conversations that are going on behind the scenes. Forget all that. Let's just talk about year 7. Mike White is about to go into his 7th year of a program that under Billy Donovan had turned itself into a consistent SEC title contender. Florida now has only competed for an SEC title, meaningfully competed for an SEC title once in Mike White's 7 years. And that was year 2 when he had largely a roster built by Billy Donovan. Here's the problem I have with Mike White. Mike White, from day one, when he arrived at Florida, has not recruited to a consistent system. When he arrived from LA Tech, the plan was to be this really high-tempo team, up and down the floor, really run teams out of the gym. And the idea was that he was a young recruiter who was going to be able to get those type of athletes to come to Florida. Now, Mike White, by the books, has done a pretty good job recruiting. He's brought in some 5-star prospects, Andrew Nemhard, Scotty Lewis, Trey Mann. The problem is, because of the way things have unfolded, whether that was Mike White taking a roster of Billy Donovan recruits and then trying to figure out what they could do, however it's unfolded over the years, Mike White has constantly tried to tinker around what he's going to run based on the players he has on the roster. And that's a good thing. You want to be flexible. But the problem is when you're flexible like that every single season and you couple that with not recruiting to a set identity, to a set system, what happens is you never get older guys that have gone through for 3-4 years the same type of system to where now they can help you teach the younger guys. And the biggest problem I have with Mike White is we saw them go from a little bit of a faster tempo with Chris Chioza and Casey Hill. All of a sudden you lose those guys and you switch to an Andrew Nemhard. The tempo completely goes out the window. They change into a half-court offense where he's trying to run sets and teach the players on that. All of a sudden, the next year you go forward, you're trying to transition to a fast-paced team this year. And it's clear that Mike White's teams have not been able to pick up from an X's and O's standpoint on the fly these quick changes that he tries to make each year, which I think to some degree you want to do. You want to see a coach be able to do that. The problem is there's no consistency. You haven't recruited to consistency. And when you do that, I think you run into this scenario that Florida's in right now, where you're in year 7 now, going into year 7. You have guys transferring out because they're frustrated. They feel the frustration. They feel the pressure from the fans. And now you have a system where you're going into year 7, and not only do you need to completely rebuild your roster, you're probably going to have to do it through transfers because Florida only signed one guy in the 2021 class. And what that says is that this attrition was not expected, or that at the very least, this much attrition was not expected. I think there's major problems within the Florida basketball program at this point. I think that it's going to be almost impossible for Mike White to overcome the hill that he's now built to climb up, being the fact that they're in year 7, they still have no consistent identity, and you've now got to completely revamp the roster. I think at this point, Scott Stricklin, Florida's athletics director, has got to seriously be contemplating where is that fine line where we finally say, okay, enough is enough. Mike White has a $7 million buyout this year that drops by $1.75 million each year remaining on his deal, and he's got 4 years left. I understand that COVID-19 is a huge financial concern for programs going forward. I know that $7 million is an extremely tough hit to take. I just look at it and say, what is the value in giving Mike White another year? Can he piece together a team that can go compete for an SEC title via the transfer portal? It's not out of the realm of possibility, but from my standpoint at this point, it is unlikely. And I think given that, you really have to wonder where this program is headed. You're 7 years in. You've got 4 players transferring from your program. That's granted, that's something that is happening at multiple places. It's not just Florida. The problem is a lot of these guys that are transferring, you couple that with lack of the development of the guys that are coming back. I look at this Florida roster not knowing who they're going to get in the transfer portal. I don't see a lot of answers. And that, to me, is the most troubling sign going into year 7 that you could possibly have. You would like to see the program on an upward trajectory. And I just do not know that you can make a compelling case that this Florida program is on an upward trajectory under Mike White. And in fact, I think you can make a convincing case that this program is trending downward fairly quickly. I think recruiting is going to continue to get more difficult because of the lack of answers that you've shown, both in picking a system and recruiting to that system, and then in producing the results that you've had with guys that you've brought in. The lack of development from a guy like Scotty Lewis, a 5-star prospect to me, is highly concerning. Just one more issue that Mike White has, and I'll be frank, I don't think these issues are going away anytime soon. And so Scott Stricklin is going to have his hands full trying to figure out what to do at this point with a program that quickly seems to be going off the rails.